This is our free OBHM filter applied to 4 different Juniper 8s. Isn't it gorgeous? All that sizzling noise up there. We also built all these beautiful filter presets here so you can quickly try different filter models on your program. Explore new colors. And we can just fool around with all of them. And of course, you can also save your own presets. Per voice filter. When we look inside of a true vintage synthesizer, we'll notice that it's neatly organized in all these different wires and components. What we're really seeing is diversity of sound. You see, on old vintage synths, every time you hit a key, a unique filter gets assigned to it. And that's exactly what we've captured with C.A.F. Are you caffeinated yet? Graphical envelopes. With envelopes, we can mold the shape of our sounds. Or just twist them to perfection. We also created this culinary set of filter tutorials, all built directly into the filter. LFOs. Think of an LFO a little bit like your synth's personal DJ that's like constantly tweaking the sound so you don't have to. You want that wobbly bass? That's an LFO. Or perhaps that pulsing, throbbing synth in a club track.
LFO, baby.
Or maybe you want that classic, like... That's an LFO too. It's basically what makes a synth move. No caffeine required. Velocity filters. Imagine playing a piano, and the harder you strike the key, the more the note brightens. In Soundpaint's C.A.F technology, we do this for every single key. And it's also a breakthrough because it's something that cannot be done on any existing vintage synthesizer. Well, till now. Unlock your Juno. This is the J60 captured at the deepest sampling level ever recorded. We call this UDS, or ultra deep sampling. Think like every classical preset or sound that it can possibly make, every raw oscillator in any possible variation, with and without the infamous Juno chorus, of course, and just virtually everything in between. Here's what it sounds like. Juniper 8, the king of polysynths. This isn't your average soft synth or an emulation in any traditional sense. This is Michael Sembello's personal Juniper 8, the very unit he wrote the famous Flashdance Maniac track on. Story goes that it was also prominently featured on Thriller. When I think of the Juniper 8, I think of fat analog power pads and warm vintage brass, filmic arps and basses, soft nostalgic strings, retro leads, and one hell of a unison mode where all the voices melt into one. This is UDS sample J8, now powered by several brand new C.A.F models, which automatically unlocks when you purchase the library. Here's what it sounds like. Aftertouch. Our C.A.F filters features true polyphonic aftertouch, the first step out of many towards full MPE integration. And that's pretty much Soundpaint 4.0 for you. Nearly 2 years in development, dedicated to capturing all the little nuances of real hardware analog synths and integrating them fully into Soundpaint. Dedicated C.A.F models featuring all the greatest vintage synthesizers across music history, flexible envelopes, high-res time stretching, and perhaps most importantly, consistently low on your CPU. But most importantly, just thank you. Thank you for supporting Soundpaint and helping us evolve the platform together with our community. It's been a lifelong dream for me to capture the authentic soul of vintage synths in software. And now, thanks to C.A.F, using the hardware synths is completely optional to me. And man, hi there, and welcome to Soundpaint 4.0, which is a free update for the Soundpaint platform. And at the heart of it is a brand new technology that we've developed called C.A.F. C.A.F stands for Capture Analog Filter, but it's really also an homage to all of us that are caffeinated constantly and with a particular focus on coffee. I like to use the coffee analogy to describe vintage synthesizers. I can have the same handful of coffee beans, but depending on how I brew and filter those beans, I can get completely different tasting cups of coffees. And I like to use that analogy about vintage synthesizers. We're pouring the sound through its filter, the filter being the heart, the sonic soul of the synthesizer. So with C.A.F, we can now capture the essence of any vintage synthesizer that we desire. So it could be a CS80, it could be a Juniper 8, it could be a Juno 60, it could be a MS10 or MS20, it could be an ARP 2600, a Prophet, it doesn't matter. We have the ability to capture that soul and get inside of Soundpaint. Now, once we have it in Soundpaint, this is where the magic begins. Analog warmth. The sound of two CS80s just sweetly dancing together. Like, how beautiful is that? But in Soundpaint, I can make it even fatter. It's actually an idea we got from the CS80 itself, where you can shoot sine waves in parallel with the normal oscillators. We can play them in octaves. We can also play with the pitch of the sine waves. Or like experiment with micropitch. The free version of Soundpaint comes with two core filter models. The perhaps most influential filter of all time, the infamous ladder filter, with its warm, vintage, fuzzy kind of sound. But to pair it perfectly, like a perfect dinner with a fully matching wine, we also offer the gorgeous SEM Filter for free, that fat, expensive, dreamy kind of sound. The free mood filter with its 70s warmth and the OBHM filters comes for free in Soundpaint. These will be supplemented by other synthesizers, for example, the MS10, the Juno, the Juniper 8, the 101. We got models for the CS80, the ARP 2600, and so forth coming very soon. Here's the free mood filter, but applied to two Juno 60s. I know, I'm freaking spoiled. And this is our free OBHM filter applied to 4 different Juniper 8s. Isn't it gorgeous? All that sizzling noise up there. We also built all these beautiful filter presets here so you can quickly try different filter models on your program. Explore new colors. And we can just fool around with all of them. And of course, you can also save your own presets. Per voice filter. When we look inside of a true vintage synthesizer, we'll notice that it's neatly organized in all these different wires and components. What we're really seeing is diversity of sound. You see, on old vintage synths, every time you hit a key, a unique filter gets assigned to it. And that's exactly what we've captured with C.A.F. Are you caffeinated yet? Graphical envelopes. With envelopes, we can mold the shape of our sounds. Or just twist them to perfection. We also created this culinary set of filter tutorials, all built directly into the filter. LFOs. Think of an LFO a little bit like your synths personal DJ that's like constantly tweaking the sound so you don't have to. You want that wobbly bass? That's an LFO. Or perhaps that pulsing, throbbing synth in a club track.
LFO, baby.
Or maybe you want that classic like... That's an LFO too. It's basically what makes a synth move. No caffeine required. Velocity filters. Imagine playing a piano, and the harder you strike the key, the more the note brightens. In Soundpaint's C.A.F technology, we do this for every single key. And it's also a breakthrough because it's something that cannot be done on any existing vintage synthesizer. Well, till now. Unlock your Juno. This is the J60 captured at the deepest sampling level ever recorded. We call this UDS, or ultra deep sampling. Think like every classical preset or sound that it can possibly make, every raw oscillator in any possible variation, with and without the infamous Juno chorus, of course, and just virtually everything in between. Here's what it sounds like. Juniper 8, the king of polysynths. This isn't your average soft synth or an emulation in any traditional sense. This is Michael Sembello's personal Juniper 8, the very unit he wrote the famous Flashdance Maniac track on. Story goes that it was also prominently featured on Thriller. When I think of the Juniper 8, I think of fat analog power pads and warm vintage brass, filmic arps and basses, soft nostalgic strings, retro leads, and one hell of a unison mode where all the voices melt into one. This is UDS sample J8, now powered by several brand new C.A.F models, which automatically unlocks when you purchase the library. Here's what it sounds like. aftertouch. Our C.A.F filters features true polyphonic aftertouch, the first step out of many towards full MPE integration. And that's pretty much Soundpaint 4.0 for you. Nearly 2 years in development, dedicated to capturing all the little nuances of real hardware analog synths and integrating them fully into Soundpaint. Dedicated C.A.F models featuring all the greatest vintage synthesizers across music history, flexible envelopes, high-res time stretching, and perhaps most importantly, consistently low on your CPU. But most importantly, just thank you. Thank you for supporting Soundpaint and helping us evolve the platform together with our community. It's been a lifelong dream for me to capture the authentic soul of vintage synths in software. And now, thanks to C.A.F, using the hardware synths is completely optional to me. And man, hi there, and welcome to Soundpaint 4.0, which is a free update for the Soundpaint platform. And at the heart of it is a brand new technology that we've developed called C.A.F. C.A.F stands for Capture Analog Filter, but it's really also an homage to all of us that are caffeinated constantly and with a particular focus on coffee. I like to use the coffee analogy to describe vintage synthesizers. I can have the same handful of coffee beans, but depending on how I brew and filter those beans, I can get completely different tasting cups of coffees. And I like to use that analogy about vintage synthesizers. We're pouring the sound through its filter, the filter being the heart, the sonic soul of the synthesizer. So with C.A.F, we can now capture the essence of any vintage synthesizer that we desire. So it could be a CS80, it could be a Juniper 8, it could be a Juno 60, it could be a MS10 or MS20, it could be an ART 2600, a Prophet, it doesn't matter. We have the...
Hey everybody, it's that time of the month, or the week I should say. Went to bed at 5 o'clock, it's 11 here right now, didn't sleep that much, and still feel totally strangely excited about the whole thing. Welcome so much to our live stream. It's such an honor, it really is, for me to be able to do this and see all you guys' lovely comments and the activity and excitement about it, and to be able to selfishly create something to and for myself and then send it out in the world and see you guys use it is so sweet. I'm probably going to be a little bit sluggish today. My already small brain is sleep deprived, but I can't wait to show you guys everything going on here. I was just reading through the chat, and I'll make sure to read it thoroughly today. Last time I think I missed a couple of questions. Forgive me. The first question is like a lot about like, hey, PCM and RTS and these different file formats and all that. Like, how does it actually work? But before we get into that, let me just read the chat here briefly. Got people from Canada, Fabian in France, from Bermuda as well. That is so cool. I like how awesome with all this technology. We had Serum come out earlier, or Serum 2 come out earlier in the week, and now this and live streams and like it's just amazing. It really is. And maybe it's just like a technology celebration frenzy kind of day. Scott, you're asking. You mentioned that you also got a Launchpad Pro. Let me see. I don't know if this is a. Let me see this one here. This is a Key Lab, I guess. I don't know if it's a Launchpad. This is my new little controller. I absolutely love this controller, by the way. This is how you make a controller, in my opinion, a MIDI controller. We'll get into all that. Where do we begin? Let me just so you can see it here instead. We got from Valencia and from Tucson, Arizona, and from Germany and from Norway. Hi Peter, hvordan går det? And another one is writing in Scandinavia, Benitopia. I have a feeling there's a couple of Scandinavians in here. Let's see, it's about 8, 9 o'clock at night in Scandinavia. Yeah. UK. Welcome everyone. Yeah, maybe it's time. I'm almost intimidated to like actually start showing you guys here because like what could possibly go wrong? But we've been. This has been 2 years of our lives. A couple of the team members, Marissa and Eric, maybe Tanya is here as well, are in the chat. It's been a massive effort for us to build this whole thing here, and especially being able to. I don't want to use the word emulate or simulate. This is really a new way of thinking about synthesis, vintage synthesis in particular. This is our new filter section. We wanted to make something in the spirit of Soundpaint that wasn't too complicated, and at the same time something that gave us everything we needed at the same time. I've talked about this in a couple of other live streams. There are amazing soft synths out there. I mentioned Serum 2, which is fantastic as well. I was really impressed and so much love gone into that. In Soundpaint, we try to keep it like somewhat light, both because it's a universal engine that needs to apply to everything, but also because in my own templates, I have 400 or 500 instances running of this thing with relative ease. I can load a template of 400 tracks in about 8-9 seconds. This is just building upon that. It's a lot of synthesis. Someone says, relax, trolls, you're amongst friends. Okay, I'll relax. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that so much. Someone says they're in central Illinois. Much less exciting unless you're into brown squirrels. I love brown squirrels. I really do. I think I'm a brown squirrel kind of guy. I mean, the gray ones are super cute as well. We have a family living right outside here, but there's something about the red ones. Yeah. So I want to, before we get into it, let me just address, because I can see there's a couple of people asking about how to use Osmos and aftertouch and how does it all work and all that stuff. Let me just go way back in time before we even get into it. This is 9 years ago, something like that. On a random day, I smoke way too much weed. I come up with this idea for audio format called RTS, which is real-time samples, which is what we based most of Soundpaint's products on so far. If you notice up here in the browser, you'll see that it says PCM. So with Soundpaint 4.0, and we actually had it in 3.2 as well, we can run PCM files. PCM is the tried and true sample standard, contact, Falcon, whatever. And we have FLAC support as well now. It essentially means our files are a lot smaller. Some of the feedback we got from you guys is that you wanted to have smaller libraries. We were like, they're right, we need smaller libraries. So we now have 2 different file formats. We have our RTS format, which allows us to morph. It's really good on, I would always use it on stuff like pianos and drums, very dynamic instruments. But the challenge is when we are in RTS, that we have to limit the amount of voices we can have because it's very computationally taxing to do the morphing. So everything sort of ends up being in one stream. Whereas in PCM, we can run multiple streams at the same time, as many voices as you want. We can play a vintage synthesizer. By the way, I feel so spoiled. Like, you can load a single part, which is a vintage synthesizer, exactly like it is. You can play it with as many notes as you want. Each of those notes get a filter associated to it with this new C.A.F system and in PCM. And you can have 8 parts do that at the same time. So it's like literally like stacking up like 50 vintage synthesizers and having them play exactly like the real thing. So that there's there's a lot going into it. I say that because if you're using Osmos and you want to try our polyphonic or aftertouch, for example, you'll notice down here, it has to be a PCM library for it to work. I know. We have some tutorials down here. These all links to different kind of videos, and there's one here called What is PCM and RTS Filters. I highly encourage you guys to see it, not during the live stream, but some other time, and you'll understand why we made the crazy choices that we did. Just looking here briefly at the chat. Those have caught C.A.F already. Yeah, I am. I had 6 shots of caffeine yesterday. That was a little too much. The last 3 were not a good idea, but anyway, let's see what this baby sounds like. We can begin here with the aftertouch patch, by the way. Obviously, we got aftertouch. And if you're on an Osmos or a neurocontroller, you can generate aftertouch per key, essentially just by going in here and activating the aftertouch button. Make sure your cutoff is down here. Each of the LFOs are voice-based as well, so we can go pretty deep. Thank you to those of you guys who are playing along with the Juniper 8. We just re-released it. It's completely built from ground up here. You'll notice we have all these different subdirectories. It's all good. The Juniper 8 for me is it's the king of polysynthesizers. And let me just show you a couple of the bases here. It's almost speechless. And if you look here, before we go into this, as you can see, I'm a little bit slightly sleep deprived, so forgive me if I'm like going back and forth here. These are all the different models we have for the Juniper 8. We have 6 different C.A.F models, capture analog filter models. We've spent a couple of years of developing a new technology for Soundpaint that allows us to capture the essence of filters from vintage synthesizers. So, for example, we did that for the Juniper here. So I can actually take all these different filters, whether I want a Moog filter, an OBHM, a Juno, Juniper, a CS80 filter, and apply them to whatever synth I want. The architecture is completely open that way. So this is just a little bit what the Juniper 8 sounds like, playing a couple of basses. You hear that shine on the resonance? That's very, very Juniper-like. Now, because this is an ultra-deep sample synth, we record every single key, every single oscillator multiple times. We call this ultra-deep sampling. You combine that with C.A.F, with this per voice filter architecture, and it's literally like sitting there. I own the unit we recorded here. And in all honesty, I'm not going to use it that much. I actually had a bizarre idea. This is a horrible idea, and I'll never do it, I promise. But a part of me wanted to take a sledgehammer and just break the whole unit to prove that I'm never going to turn it on again. But I was like, no, if you do that, like, sell it on Reverb and donate to charity. That's a better idea. But it's that close for me. And for me, when you deal with vintage synthesizers, like the CS80 has to be repaired every 3-6 months. It's just so much more convenient to have it in here. Granted, I don't have the luxury of having all the same settings, but with a little controller like this, I can have 8 different assignments here, all this stuff here. Like I have virtually everything I need. So I'm truly, forgive me, I'm truly like a kid in a candy store, and I hope you guys will be too. Like this is For vintage synthesis, my favorite method, we also deep sample the synths. We use C.A.F to build the filters, and we have a fairly close approximation to the real deal. It's not an emulation or a soft synth in a traditional way. It is, if you own the real unit, you'll know. Hi, Tanya. Bass Buzzy. Now, we can enjoy C.A.F so much with basses because they're traditionally more monophonic, but what we can hear is stuff like resonance in the filter, repeated notes. You hear that every time I play, try to listen for the difference in it, all the round robins, all the little nuances in the filters kicking in. Remember, it's per voice, so every time I click a key, a new filter gets assigned to it, even if it's just one voice. And let me just make sure I don't want to miss anything on the chat. I do not want to miss anything on the chat. Let me just see here. Tanya is in Thailand, indeed. You guys talking about that. Lots of love going to Thailand. I updated 4 hours ago, brought to try pure insanity, full satisfaction. It is full satisfaction to use this thing here. The SPUI is frozen. The SPUI is frozen. Oh, I see. So let me just update that. Thank you for saying that. I guess you... trials and tribulations of live streams. Let's see if this is better. Brass sounds. I don't think the final countdown was actually made on a Juniper, but I was trying to come up with like, oh, it has that kind of sound. One thing that's I encourage you guys to have fun with is to have different parts and then assign different filters to them. So when I click this knob here, I can assign all my filters to have the same behavior. So if I move the cutoff here, it's going to affect all 8 parts. But if I unclick it, we can actually assign different filter models to each part. So if I want to be really extravagant, I can say, no, I want to move filter on this guy here, and I want like an OBHM filter here, and they're now behaving independently. And I can hear the different resonance in the stereo fields behaving differently as well. You hear that? So those are, I know, just holding down one key. These are different kind of oscillators, or resonators. Sleep, live stream and sleep deprivation, this is the way to go. You announced to add list new graphical envelopes LFO. Can you show the new LFO graphics? Sure. We're actually looking at them right now. These are the new LFO graphics, or symbols, should I say. So how does LFO work? Well, let's just see here. I'm gonna click this guy here, so we're gonna affect all the individual. No, I'm actually gonna keep it unclicked. I'll just start with one part here. We'll go into the first one here. This is part one. We're gonna assign a little bit of LFO action to it. Now, as I mentioned, because it's per voice based, we can actually have different kind of parts playing it. So let me activate the other part and assign a different like speed of LFO to that. Isn't that the coolest shit? One of the things I love so much about this is that I couldn't do this on the vintage synth. I couldn't have this many voices. Well, I could have 6 voices playing actually. I could have 6 voices playing, but I couldn't do individual LFOs per voice. And to give context to the different models as well, let me just check one part here. Let's take this guy up here. No, let me actually show you guys a little more. Let's be a little more clinical. I'll write in Juniper 8 here, and then we'll just take like an oscillator instead, just to take it like dead clean. We'll take a square wave. That's tried and true. And apply a filter to it. One thing that took quite a while was to get a smoothness of the filters as well. If you listen here, how smooth it is. Often in digital, we can hear what's called steps in the filter. None of that. Just looking briefly at the chat here. Will we be able to use the filters on our own samples if they're WAV files? Yes, we will. We're coming up with an update for USI that supports PCM as well, so you can get it in there and benefit from all the C.A.F filters, for sure. Thought Jump might have Jupiter, but it was an OBX. Yep, the infamous Jump riff was indeed an OBX. We have a lot coming in that direction as well, and we'll surely have the Jump heads. We could build it here with the Jupiter 8 as well. The Jupiter is has that same sort of anthem trance kind of quality for like really powerful themes. We're just looking at the brass section here. There's a lot of that in here. Also more like old school kind of funky styles. Oh man, I love this. Can you guys hear the noise? It's a little bit of noise at the end. I don't know how to play jump, but it sounds jumpy. Fabian is saying the info regarding each product format seems available on the website in the specifications. Yeah, we actually talked about that. We probably can do better in really being specific. Like this is a PCM library, this is an RTS library. We're working on converters as well. This is obviously something that we want to pay a lot of attention to. Someone mentioned Dunescape earlier. Dunescape is coming in PCM version as well, so we can benefit from all these things. And I wish things were simple. We really tried for a long time to get our RTS format to work in this way here, but in development sometimes you have to bite the bullet, and we're spoiled as well because we can morph in one format. It's just so much better for pianos, dynamic instruments, but then we can do all the other stuff here. This is sampling 101, has been for the last 25 years in terms of the PCM format. Let's see here, recorded Marshall Super Lead guitar, nice 4N Pro. Yeah, I love this particular Zoom recorder here. I've had for so long. I love them. They're affordable, easy to just drag around. And if you go, I mean, I've done crazy experiments with them where I like actually put them and sling them around. Like you can just have fun. I love that. Affordable recorders is a good thing. Can aftertouch control the LFO speed? Yes, it can. That's essentially what it does in this section right here. Doesn't it help easier to figure out what libraries are PCM? Yeah, maybe, I guess a couple of you guys are asking which libraries are PCM based at this point. Maybe if one of the team members want to clarify that in the chat, maybe you guys already have, but it might be good to have all our instant guitars, for example, that we just released are PCM based. So we can take the C.A.F filter. Let's take the mandolin that we released last week. Let me just load a patch here, and we'll try to apply a C.A.F filters to that as well. So let's take the Moog filter here. Now, one neat thing, and this is a little bit unique to Soundpaint, just because we're such an acoustic engine, is that we can actually play the filters in velocities. Call that filter velocity right here. So if I play harder, the instrument is going to burn more through. And we can adjust the velocities and get a little bit deeper into it. Let me just see here. That's good. And because every voice gets its own filter, it makes the filters a little more nimble when we can assign filters to them as well. Did I get that right? I don't. Sleep deprivation. Anyway, yes, for any PCM-based library, for example, our guitars here, we can use the C.A.F filters on them, and it just makes it freeing in a way. Obviously, we have envelopes here as well. We'll get into all of that. Just reading briefly on the chat here. Oh yeah, instant guitar too, I forgot. Yeah, so all the instant guitars. Oscar is saying, can you hover over and over the parameters and get a description and advice how to use them? So yeah, we can hover over the parameters. It's a good question in regard to the advice. We've talked about that. I always wanted to have like an X-ray feature in the engine. Why am I doing this? That would sort of be an overlayer that would show you everything going on, but almost like you did an X-ray photo. But I came up with another idea called synth advice. Some of you guys may know we had last season in Soundpaint, we had something called sound advice, which are all these different kind of tutorials. And this season we have synth advice because we're going to go way deep into synthesis. And down here we have different kind of tutorials. These are already ready, so when you click on them here, it's going to open a YouTube channel, and Nick Semrat, for the most part, is going to show anyone who wants to learn about it how to use filters from the very ground up, just starting with like filter 101, and then get into more advanced envelopes and how to sculpt with LFOs. And we have a video here that talks about the difference between PCM and RTS as well. Eric is asking, like, and PCM is, so Eric, many years ago, there was a file format called PCM, or the WAV format, introduced. It's been with us for Lord knows how long. I think it came out of a Microsoft research project. And that sort of became the standard de facto before we got into MP3 and all that for the audio world. And a lot of the early samplers were using it, and all current samplers are using it today. You may have compression like FLAC format, which we support now in the engine as well, to get the file sizes down. But this is the tried and true audio format. And as I mentioned earlier on, it's great for certain things and it's not so good for other things, which is why we have two different formats. But it is wicked good for synthesis because it's a very cheap format in the sense that it doesn't cost a lot on the CPU to process every voice. So for that reason, we can have at it. Let me just try to take, because the Juno has some sweet ARPs here. I'm gonna play a couple ARPs and then run them into my looper. I have a looper over here, so if you see me not doing anything on the keys, it's So this is actually a good example. Right now I loaded like an older library that does not support PCM. You will see up here that it says RTS, and we're getting this graphic down here. This is what happens if you have an RTS library but you're trying to use the new filter section on it. You're going to get a graphic here. There's a video here explaining why that is. You can always just click here, create RTS filter, and it'll create a filter in this section here. It's not a per voice filter, it's our traditional filter section, which is great as well. It'll get you most of where you want if you're not into super deep synthesis. But it's just to give an example of like what it would be like if you're using a non-RTS library. Just looking here on the chat again. Can I load my own multi-samples and use the new filters? Yeah, sure. We're building, we have something up here called USI. This is our internal editor. And let me just switch to it. Two seconds. I noticed that I'm actually, the channel here was not updated either. Let's see, max screen capture. And let's use another one here, go back. Hopefully this one works now. Yeah, that's better. I think it works now. I just want to make sure I'm actually showing you guys in real time. Yeah, we have this editor up here where we can import samples, and that's going to support PCM as well soon. Indeed. Our choicest plans have fallen through. Our earliest castles tumbled over because the lines we nearly draw and nearly stumble over. Rooting for you on the fixes. When older RTS libraries are upgraded to PCM, will there be an upgrade path for the RTS? Yeah, Bubble Brain, we're still working on this whole RTS PCM thing and how to figure it out. And should we have a converter in the engine? Should it just be a single click? Is it something we offer? We're still chewing on it and trying to figure out. I think it's a conversation we should have with you guys, by the way. How should it work out? Do you want to have both versions on your hard drive? That's going to take up a lot of space. How do we show the different formats in the browser? Lots of considerations, yeah. But you can always see it up here. PCM will be marked here, and any older RTS library will be shown in orange here. I have the DX7 loaded right now. This is one of the few libraries that I would probably not want to convert to PCM because it's velocity based. So when you play these old kind of E pianos, they're just the DX7 is just so beautiful the way it is, but it has to be played in velocities. It's better that way. So each format has its own advantages, but I mean, when you can stack like, how many parts here? Four different. So this is like having 4 different Juniper 8s, each with their own filters, and just have at it. I'm just running through my looper here so I can start layering. Forgive me, the chat is on fire here, so make sure I cover it. See here, Relax says the download just finished jumping into the Juniper 8 now. Everything sounds beautiful. Thank you, Relax. Let me know how it goes. I'm so curious. The Harman organ library would probably be nice to use with C.A.F and maybe the vintage mellow too. Yeah, Billy, you're right. Like we should have a conversation about what libraries really benefit from this, and we're certainly open to feedback as well. It's not a big deal for us really to change it. And as I mentioned, like it may be something we put the converter in the engine as well. All work in progress. But like it's really, when you get it's kind of weird to talk about this, but you sort of get a feel for the different file formats. The PCM is just great for synthesis. RTS is just great for dynamic instruments. But to your point, since an organ is not really velocity based, it probably benefit more from per voice stuff. I agree. Oscar says, I know you have given us a few free instruments and we're thankful. Can you just give us a few synth patches for our own ears? Just a few. I think that's a great idea, Oscar. I think we should have like a little synth taster pack out there so people can try the PCM format and C.A.F. Like with C.A.F, we are, if you don't have all the different synthesizers, it comes for free with the Mood and the OBHM. These are the 2 most known filters. This is the ladder filter from the Model D. This is the SEM filter from some of the OBHM's really beautiful models. It would be cool to have a little teaser taster pack out there with synthesizers. We'll remember that. That's a good point. When will all the Soundpaint libraries be optimized for the new format? Aaron, we're looking into this is all, we just released it. So we're trying to figure it all out. Should it be a converter in the engine? Something we do is probably something we should offer to make life easy, but maybe people want to do it themselves as well, make it optional. We'll figure it out. Shaw is saying, I have about 35 of Moog 1 and Deckard samples. That would be awesome to have in here. Oh my god, would it not? Speaking of Deckard, Deckard is a synth that was emulating the great CS80, one of the closest, if not the closest emulation. We've recorded a CS80 as well. It's coming out pretty soon. And it truly is one of the greatest. It's super spoiled to be able to have a Juniper 8 and a CS80 at my hands and having worked with them for so long. And then you'll notice here that we actually rebuilt the CS80 filters here as well. And being able to have, how many is here? There's only 4 CS80s here, Now, like the spoiled child that I am, I can take the CS80 here. We have it running in the looper right now, just capture a little bit, and then we was like, no, I want a Juniper bass on this thing here. Let's track the gnarly fuzz. I love this patch here. it's so easy to mess around. And I don't even know where we talked about CS80 and all that stuff. For sure, if you have Moog 1 samples or Deckard samples, they would breathe in a different way in here. It's I don't know if you guys saw in the teaser intro, I took this shot of the CS80 where you can see all the wires inside of it, all the 4,000 or 5,000 wires. And one realizes that the complexity in vintage synthesizers, how every voice is so affected by all the circuitry that it runs through, it's so unique. And we have there's a little bit of of urgency in terms of recording these old synthesizers because they're not going to last forever. A lot of the CS80s are starting to die. The bigger components inside of them simply degrade over time, and they're not being reproduced. So I think sometimes we think it's like, oh, there's always like a replacement for that. It's like not everything. And something Tanya and I have been working on is to, with the Moog Foundation as well, is to try to preserve some of these old synthesizers before they pass. And I think we're in we have something called Coffee Time coming up soon where we're talking to different people. One of them is Ryan Hawkins, one of the leading synth specialists in LA. And we talked about that we're in a sweet spot right now where these units are almost golden because they're each developing independent voices because the circuitry is slowly starting to degrade. But before it degrades too much, because there's a point where it's like, the bad wine, the good wine turns bad. It is a little bit of a gamble and like fine wine dealing with vintage synthesizers. But once we have them in here, encapsulated like a ghost in Ghostbusters, we can do whatever we want, and we have them preserved forever. This for me is really like mostly what it's about, to ensure that I can just go straight from a CS80 to a Jupiter. Like, how spoiled am I? And for any of you guys who've dealt with the real hardware vintage stuff, you know what I'm talking about. It's a hassle, and I don't think anyone should rightfully claim that they are completely have built a one-to-one correlation with reality. When you look inside of a vintage synth like the CS80, you realize like there's so much complexity in here. We're looking possibly at a Stradivarius without knowing it yet. And just appreciate it for the complexities and the mad over-engineering that went into it. I'm actually very curious what you guys think about this UI here. Like, is this over-engineered? Are we hitting the simple sweet spot? Like, where are we? I'll give you an example of that. Again, I'll load in, I'll just write Jupiter 8 and then oscillator, and I'll just take the sawtooth in here. I like to just work from scratch. We'll choose a model here. Let's just take the Oberheim and apply it to the Jupiter. One thing we did to make life easier is like, well, like sometimes I just don't want to build patches. I just want to be lazy, but I don't want to change my part. I sort of just want to skate override our presets. So let me just trigger the ARP here. This is going to sound fairly mundane. And then I'm going to try to go over the different filter presets here in real time. And all of a sudden we get different colors. And when I save a preset, it actually remembers all the modulations. As you may know, in Soundpaint, you can right click and modulate everything inside of it. It remembers your modulations into filter presets. So when I move my mod wheel, good times. Let's say I was like, well, I kind of want a more brassy sound. I don't want an arpeggiator. Well, we can just go with the brass presets here. It's also something, if you listen down here in the basses, that sounds like weird oscillators, like overtones and noise. And for me, this is where things start separating from digital soft synths into true vintage. I know that the waters break. Some people say that you can do anything in soft synth, and in many ways that is true. But if you listen to the natural imperfections of older oscillators, and every time I click the key, they behave differently. There's unique attack in them. The electricity, voltage, whatever goes into these synthesizers is different. You learn to appreciate vintage at a different level. Back to the presets. Oh, Bob, thank you. Love the interface. Simple, yet we can go deeper as necessary. Chef's kiss. Thank you. And kisses back too. It's the hardest thing in Soundpaint for me is to keep it light and simple, and yet give the spoiled kid enough so I'll never get lost, and then to strike that balance. Maybe we should try, as a part of this exercise as well, to just take it from scratch. We have a simple oscillator loaded here. We just went through some different presets for brass. Juniper filter, wood filter, Juniper, more stabby. So the presets are super nice this way because I can hold the same part here and have the presets just do it for me. You can save your own presets in here as well. You can move things around. You can do whatever you want to do, and you should. Love that resonance feel, someone is saying. Well, let's listen. Resonance is a very interesting and important aspect of C.A.F as well, in terms of how we capture the resonance, because cutoff, one could argue, is more or less the same, though that's not entirely true. For example, the Model D, which we have, there's a mood filter here, will shoot a little bit of noise into its signal chain that's very unique for that. Some of them have slightly faulty schematics, and the way the real units behave is also non-linear. So many advanced words. But the resonance matters. So this would be the. Let's just take them top here. This is the Moog. And the OBHM has a very characteristic resonance. That one up there. Oscar says, as a user since Contact 2, I'm looking at sound design quicker, faster, more intuitively. I'm hoping Soundpaint will be the key to the lock. Oscar, let me show you a party trick. How you can design really quickly in Contact. We're gonna go in Soundpaint. We're gonna go out of C.A.F and into our parts mode here. Notice we have programs and parts mode. And for this exercise here, I'm just gonna click 1 and 2 here, meaning that whatever I'm about to do is gonna affect part 1 and 2, and we're gonna roll the dice and see what happens. Every time I roll the dice, it's... What the hell is this? Wow, avant-garde. And I like to just click it until I find like a happy accident. Dunescape noise and harpsichord. It's kind of moody. Disco strings and Juno 60. Okay. That's the party trick. We have a randomizer in here. Oh, that's Vivaldi. Sorry, we can't go there yet. It'll just generate random patches for you. I feel like every song from the 80s always ended like this. You guys feel the same? Hello? Anyway, have fun with it, man. The randomizer, I use it often just to like sort of break my mind and just try something entirely new. And Oscar, speaking of Contact 2, like, did you know that the first Contact is over 25 years old? That's how long that platform has been around, and it speaks to the architecture. And there's some clever choices made earlier in the early days. One of the challenging parts about building technology, and something we discuss greatly and spend a tremendous amount of time on internally, is like, how much do we really need? When do we go too far? When does the engine get too heavy? You know, that it's a fine line, because the problem in software is that we can do anything we want, and for that reason we do it. And that's like the worst thing about making software as well, that there's too many options. I like to use the analogy of, like, think about all your favorite composers out there. What do they all have in common, except the more modern generation? Well, they had simplicity in front of them. Just a piano, maybe a fiddle, piece of paper. That was all. And a lot of the greatest pieces were written that way. So I also like sometimes to just restrain myself and stay like completely simple. Someone is asking, and rightfully so, when it comes to the randomizer here, like, it would be amazing if I could, like, say, hey, I only wanted to affect the alt ensemble or the ambiances or a select group of instruments. That is coming. It is in the works. Right now, it's just a raw randomizer. You know, get what you get. But sometimes, I'm gonna keep clicking until we find something good here. Hold on. That's cool. We got a legato solo bass. And then like a hybrid thing on top. Something cool about this note here. Okay, I'm gonna try to build something like, I have this thing crazy on a loop here. I'm gonna take some other randomized shit and just throw at it. So many strange layers. It's easy to venture too deep into the forest with a randomizer. I'll acknowledge that. Tread lightly. Steve Goody says, yeah, sometimes I'm inspired playing with VST. Sometimes I want to write only with a guitar and piano. Absolutely, Steve. And also like acoustic instruments. I have a variety of acoustic instruments, just a little guitar. I really think it's so helpful to play acoustic instruments, real acoustic instruments. It helps me understand how it can become better in the engine. For example, guitars, like you have to play real guitar to even phrase it correctly. And I shouldn't say this because this is so like promotional, but it's kind of like running shoes. Like if you could buy a pair of running shoes or a pair of skis or whatever it is. It won't make you good until you start running in them, and it's the same for music and the same for everything in life. In my little philosophy, like I just feel people sometimes want too many quick shortcuts, and I see and this is just a personal preference. There's no right. The only advice I ever got that was really great was to never take advice from anyone else. So these are just my humble opinions. I do feel that there's a trend right now going towards like one finger kind of approach, or just drag in some loops and be done with it, or MIDI scalers where I don't have to play chords And I think that's fine, and you can generate beautiful music that way as well. I just think I get more exploratory when I play myself and I'm in touch with it. And there's nothing, and I hope Soundpaint one day that we get more into controllers and all that. But so far, for me in the digital realm, there's nothing that comes close to like real acoustics. For the very same reason that we've gone to such insanity and great lengths to try to build like synthesis into an engine as well. So it truly feels like being there with the unit. Clipping a little bit here. Trolls, your sleepy ass is batting 1,000. Thank you. Thank you. I don't. It was weird. Went to bed around 5. We really worked hard. We were really working to the last minute, but it's been this one has been interesting because it's actually been done for quite a while. We were just sort of polishing upon the polish. And for me, the trailer, which I did entirely myself, that was like a couple of weeks just working on that. But then, like, why did we do it? Why did we strive for this perfection? And what's the entire point? And I'm split. A part of me is like, it's completely pointless to go to polish every pixel and every single detail. But I think, and I think this goes across the arts. If one pays attention to production values, it tends to create more longevity in the product. And it's painful, and it's the 10 miles extra after you've already walked your entire walk that makes the difference. It takes a fairly rigorous mindset and a very tolerant family as well, and a tolerant team for that matter as well, to get through this. The looper I'm using is the RC505 Mark II loop station by Boss. I'm kind of thinking I should have like a looper camera. It's the one over here, that one. That I should get like a looper camera so you guys can see what I'm actually doing. It's so sweet. I love it. I was just looping a little part of the Juniper before. And there's something so cute. I love using loopers because it takes me out of quantizing my stuff. I think quantization is like the death of music. Just play it in your hand. Anyway, back to the chat. I think a 2-hour video of Jules just playing relaxing music would be nice. I agree, Billy. I actually thought sometimes when I just sit in the late night that it would be cool just to turn the live stream on and have like no talk, but like really just do it in real time. Like, I mean, ambient stuff is endless. Should we do it? Just create a little quick ambient track. I'll go into the ambient section here of the Juniper 8. I really encourage you guys, at least I do this, and maybe it's limiting as well. I should like take no advice, please. I like to heart the patches I really like, and then I keep coming back to them, but maybe that's not wise. Let's try ambient. It's still too rhythmic, maybe. Oh, I remember this one. I took 6 different delays, and no, 5 different delays. Why did I say 6? It's only 5. Oh well. Are you counting? Just to see what would happen. And you guys may know that reverbs are essentially just a stack of delays as well. So this is 5 BBD delays. The 5 delays. Thank you for the sweet words in the chat as well. Cheetah says, you're not just building an incredible legacy with Soundpaint, you're setting the standard for what it means when a company genuinely cares about what it creates. Do you want to know what the secret is? The secret is really to build it to and for yourself. I used to be of the exact opposite mindset that no, it's about testing on focus groups and target groups and blah blah blah. But you won't find the same amount of passion in it. It's something I saw in the early days of game developers as well. Like the really really good games are made by people that really care about it. And I think it goes for anything really in life. But I think what's changed for us is that it started with that, and then as we've slowly coupled the community in, I mean, I would say we're barely out of beta. We are out of beta now, but beta was a couple of years. really like working with the community. Like just today in the chat here, we're getting great feedback. And take it to heart, even when it's not pleasant as well. Like, you know, no one is perfect. And in a strange way, with the release of C.A.F, it's actually about embracing imperfection more than it's about embracing perfection. To give a completely mad example about this, way back, I'll just play a little bit as we talk, since it's just the ambient. Way back when we started on this whole journey, we had a set of filters that were very correct. They were very mathematically correct. They were what you call like textbook. And what we realized in the process that the textbook, the theoretically correct filters were actually more taxing in the computer. And by making them slightly more sloppy and unstable, just like their real counterparts based on the same like physical attributes, we actually got the CPU count down by embracing imperfection. Obviously, this whole idea about per voice filters for every single note I click, different filter gets assigned to it. And you can hear it. This is where vintage just shines in a different way, that every filter is discrete and unique, just like you and I. And you can feel it too. So in that regard, it is about embracing imperfection, even at a technological level. You see the same with all the AIs out there, how soulless they are because they were only trained on what's already there, and by approximation, mostly trained on what's popular. So McDonald's is popular. It is all about love when you create instruments as well. And then I think it's also, for me, it's also an exercise in humbleness, and really try to listen to what the instrument is telling you. I see it as a dialogue. With the CS80, that I spent over a month recording it every single day myself, and it was truly a dialogue. But it was also a dialogue out of respect. Like, I know the CS80 is such a revered, beautiful, complex instrument as well, and learn to see as much beauty in it as possible, and realize that I'm in the conversation, that the CS80 knows more than me. So yeah, it's like listening is really important. Yeah, I said McDonald's is popular. They actually, I just read the other day that McDonald's is no longer the largest restaurant chain in the world. They just got beaten by another one that supposedly have even more stores. I think we were counting about 32,000. I always love when they say restaurants. It's like, restaurant, maybe. But you know, they're keeping a lot of mouths alive as well. Someone is asking what happened to Vivaldi strings. Right, what happened to Vivaldi strings? I so want to show you guys, but I know I shouldn't. Today is about C.A.F. Vivaldi is alive. We released the first product, which is the harpsichord. The Vivaldi solo violin and ensemble violins are more or less done, but we like to take our time to polish them. Unfortunately, we had to deal with a fire here in LA. So Tanya and I and Marissa and others got evacuated, and that wasn't so much fun. So we had this is actually the third time I've been evacuated from fires, and every time it just affects you a little bit. So Vivaldi was supposed to come out in winter, and we did come out with the harpsichord. So in that regard, we lived up to our promise. But the strings are going to be spring, And just take your time sometimes to polish things. This is a good result of it. We've been polishing C.A.F for quite a while. I like this. I like this 5 delay kind of patch. What do you guys think? It's funny if you notice here that there's no reverb on it, but because we have 5 different delays cascading into each other, they create a gorgeous reverb. Oh, I remember this patch here. I love this guy here. Where were we? It's weird. When I do live streams, I sometimes forget that the stream is running when I get too deep into the flow. And someone is asking, Scott is asking, just want to risk a constructive comment on the 4.0 video. Did you do the dripping falling effect almost as the text that flashes? Next time, a humble suggestion is to mix it up a little bit. That's a good suggestion, Scott. I agree. Set with love. Oh, I know. Megapixel, that reminded me of Pink Floyd a bit. Yeah, Megapixel, you're right. They used the Prophet 5 a lot. I remember Dave was very, very proud of that. And we have that coming in Soundpaint as well. We were lucky enough to record Dave's own Prophet, the last one ever made of the original vintage ones. All we need now is some rain and car noises. Perfect ambient start track. I guess it is. What about MIDI 2.0 as I own a key stage 6 to 1? It would be great to communicate with it. So Sonny, you're right. Let's talk about this just for a second. So to build something like this here was about, oops, and I'm showing in like the old version here, loaded Juniper instead. To build something like this here was about 2 years in development. And on the back side, we had to rewire the entire engine because it's now per voice based. And once it's per voice based, you can do all sorts of new modulations that you couldn't do in the old format. Forgive me for just geeking out for a second. To build all these features here and have them speak together, work universally, come up with a universal design, build presets, build tutorials, build, most importantly, all the different C.A.F models here. It's a tremendous amount of work. And I think it's something that we as developers don't often get to talk about in public. The excruciating amount of painful work it is to both create something that's seemingly simple and not simple at all. Speaking of that, by the way, there's a feature I completely forgot to show you guys. If I take a patch like this one here, let me just clean it up here. Let's again just start with I'll just write Juniper again, and just ask for oscillator. We'll take a sawtooth here. We have a sawtooth right here. So on the CS80, it has this beautiful thing that you can shoot sine waves in parallel with the filters. We built that in. It really helps warm up things if you ever need that. You can also do more micro pitch kind of effects. Kind of tribute to work with the micro pitches as well. We'll choose a filter. Let's take the delicious filter here. And we can shoot it down in octaves too. This is so analog. For you guys who work with hardware analogs, you know what I mean. And just check how smooth it is. We call it, Patrice, who's building these things, he calls it like the term butter smooth. And you can hear here like the oscillator's a little bit out of whack with the pitch. We can dial that in. No true vintage oscillator is completely perfect, nor are they supposed to be. That's exactly what makes them so beautiful. And we can take the gnarly like 101 filter. Speaking of resonators. An hour and 30 minutes almost have gone by, and I have not actually talked about like the UI here. Do you guys want to see a little bit about what's going on? What it's all about? Not, maybe you figured it out already, because in a way there's not so much to show, and in a way there's a lot to show here. Let's just take a look at this. Let's build a little patch here. We have this saw here. I'm gonna take a saw square, put it over here. I'm gonna set the pan left and right so we get a little bit of stereo action. I love that. I'm on a stereo trip right now. And we're gonna assign, let's see here. We're gonna put a Juniper filter on this guy. And then we're gonna put another Juniper, but with a different high pass here. Let's see here. Oh, that one's kind of subtle. Let's put another saw instead. And we can hear it's a little bit detuned. That's coming from the And you may notice that I'm using unique sine waves per part as well. So we're shooting a bunch of sine waves together with the oscillators. Now, you may recall we talked about, like, if you click this button here, that you can essentially, let's bring this view back, it's better actually, that you can affect all the different parts at the same time, just like we have in other parts of Soundpaint, this little icon right here. I say that because if I unclick it right now, we can set the filter cutoff for each part individually. Let's say I kind of like it here, so I only wanted to start here. I'm gonna move the mouse up here, and now this part runs independently from the other one. And I kind of like this one up here. So when I move the mod wheel down now, we're not going all the way down. We're sort of limiting our range. Really important, for me at least, when I build patches, to always, when I modulate, limit the range here. I don't always want to be skating over the entire frequency spectrum. You'll notice that I'm creating a little bit of contrast with the warmth here. Just make it a little bit detuned. Hello, Aaron Moon. Hello, Danielle. And hello, there's a lot of hellos here. Hello, everyone. Okay, so we got this. We have two different parts running, each have their own filter. Maybe we should choose a different filter for one of these parts here. So we have a mood filter on one and a Juniper on another one here. And we can have resonance different as well. So let's say we want this part here to be more resonant. It's only this one here that gets affected by the resonance. We have key tracking. Key tracking is a synthesizer feature where sometimes you want to have more even distribution of the colors of your keys, so to speak. So if you move it up here, things will get brighter as you move up the keyboard and vice versa. Said in a very short way. We have our LFOs here. And these are also per part. So right now we're only affecting part one because we didn't click this guy here. So everything I'm doing right here is only affecting this part up here. So we can start hearing some LFO movement. And we can try different shapes. And just isolate the part. We can do it random. It's kind of cool. I'm gonna click this guy here because I want LFO to be affecting all the parts here. So it's affecting both parts now. And I'm gonna choose the same shape. Oh, that's cool. so vintage. That's your LFOs. We can sync them here to your DAW tempo as well. We can add aftertouch. We can add mod wheel, so the mod wheel will control it. What's called mod touch here is the same thing. That's how much we want the mod wheel to be affected. And over here, we have our envelopes. We have filled envelopes and we have ADSR envelopes. If you ever want to like enlarge it, you can do this. I use this all the time. It also associates to your, let me see if you can, I have to move out here. Your mod wheel, I'm using my mod wheel right now as I'm moving this thing here. So it's very easy to navigate in and out of your envelopes that way, and you can always enlarge them. The same with your ADSR here. It's quite easy to sculpt them. And everything you do here, every kind of modulation, everything you move around can be saved over here, and everything you're doing will be saved into your filter preset as well. I know, lots of talk. Back to the chat. So what other filters are you using here, and what product do they come from? Will they be sold separately as add-ons to the engine? Fabian is asking. What a fabulous question. Forgive me, I'm just going to take a sip of coffee before we get into this one. So, you're right. We have different kind of filters. Let's see here, it's better. You'll notice that we have a mood filter here that comes for free with the engine. This is the mood model D filter is the ladder filter, the most revered of all filters there, say through history. We have the MS-10. This is going to be unlocked with a specific MS-10, MS-20 library we're working on. We have the OBHM SEM Filter. I always say it has like a dreamy, sort of creamy, big, modern kind of sound to it. Comes for free with the engine as well. And with different models for the different kind of passes, low pass, band pass, high pass. This coming week, we're releasing the Juno 60 in a completely new form, just like we did with the Jupiter. That unlocks the Juno filter. The Jupiter we're looking at today unlocks 6 different C.A.F models for Jupiters, Jupiter 8. We have a 101 coming, very squelchy, gnarly. We have a CS80 filter, but we have other filters coming too. Every time we release essentially a new synthesizer, sort of larger scale, it's going to come with a filter. So think like ARC 2600, Prophet, Curtis filters, all the different filter models from all the great synthesizers, and the ability to cross-pollinate them between each other. That's the most important part. So I can take I was like, oh well, I'm not locked to Jupiter filter. If I want a, a Juno filter instead, we can do that. Oh, I've been messing with the envelopes. I can actually, just speaking of that, let me just show it briefly, even though it's a little outside today, but give you a little sneak peek at the Juno as well, because this library is sweet. You'll notice that in the same way, it's completely been reorganized into directories. Every patch has been rebuilt from scratch. It's just that Juno magic. Thank you, Fabian. Yeah, it should be logical. Like for the way we're thinking about it is like for every large synth that you own, you unlock the corresponding filters with it. So with the new Juniper, it unlocks all the Juniper filters and so forth. So for those of you guys like myself that likes to collect these things and unlock more, it's like super spoiled because like I have like all my favorite synthesizers of all time profoundly deep sampled to the degree that I never want to turn on the hardware again or very infrequently. And being able to cross-pollinate between all the different kind of things, that's what makes me happy. As I mentioned before, there are many, many amazing soft synths out there that can do a hell of a lot of things that we may not even ever be able to do in Soundpaint. But for me, there's a reason. If you look at modern pop productions, for example, the Juno we just talked about, particularly the 106, which is coming out soon as well, it's used in virtually like, I don't know, half of all pop productions. I asked ChatGPT the other day just how deep synthesis really goes. I asked it how many of the most famous tracks written in modern music history featured synthesizers, and it's over half of them. So for me, this category has been ignored in sampling. It's certainly been embraced a lot in soft synths and all that stuff, but when it comes to sampling, I don't think it's truly been represented at the level of depth that it warrants. I say that because when we record like acoustic instruments, we'll happily do like 100,000 string samples of a great solo violin, but most developers tend to like, oh, it's just a synthesizer, it's an oscillator, like let's not deal with it. I just happen to feel different about it. Like I think they need to be recorded at the same depth as we do the most advanced acoustic instruments. If you look inside of a synthesizer, or you're lucky enough to work with people that built them, Johnny and I worked with Dave Smith for many years on the Prophet. You get to appreciate like the level of depth going into it. It's a form of love and care that one only fully understands working with the hardware actually. And then also the realization that these things are just as alive as acoustic instruments. I mean, if we just take the Juno here, where do we begin? I mean, just the ARPs alone, for me an ARP, particular when it comes to vintage, every time it repeats itself, it generates a new version because the filters are unique and they're per voice as well. I mean, you can hold down one key and for me, this is the perfect sound to explain it with actually, because if this was a static sampler, you could hear what we call the machine gun effect. You would hear it's the same sample, but because this is analog and it's also deep sampled, there's variations in the notes, just like we had round robin for acoustic instruments. It really, really makes a difference. You may also notice that vintage is not as fat. A lot of great modern software synths are so big, but it almost becomes overwhelming. Way back in the day, when they created synthesizers, it was very much with a given purpose, like, okay, this is designed for mid-range strings. This is a bass synthesizer. This is like leads and crazy stuff. They served a role in music and weren't trying to be the Swiss Army knife of everything. As you get into vintage synthesis, you realize the same thing. The Juno here plays, it's not the biggest synthesizer ever, but it's one of the most soft and gentle ones, really sweet on the ear. There's so many ways to demo this, but I mean, just the pads alone will tell you. Scott is saying, I honestly find it surprising that there are not more YouTube creators displaying Soundpaint and the lack of forum discussions and such, as I found. Scott, in a way you're right, and in a way you're not, if I may offer a different angle on it. You're probably right when it comes to forum. I don't go on forums. I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. There are toxic shitholes that are not for me. But we are so fortunate to have over 180,000 active Soundpaint customers. And I think a lot of us just don't spend so much time on social media and all that stuff. It actually took Tanya years to persuade me even to do these live streams. I'm not saying this is good either. I think our recluse nature as a company is not always to the greatest benefit. But I think, let me put it differently. You may know there was a video game called Angry Birds many years ago, made by a company called Rovio. What most people don't know is that Rovio did about 50 games before they did Angry Birds. And it just takes time. And our industry is very small. There's a lot of unnecessary bashing between developers and all that stuff. We stay completely out of that. We just stay away from it and just slowly building our own thing. As I mentioned earlier, we're first and foremost building this to ourselves and the community like yourself that's engaged with us. And if other people like it, great, join along whenever you want. We're never on sale, so there's no FOMO in regards to all that. And if it's not for you, great. There are many other beautiful alternatives out there. I think it's more having a point of view. And I have no aspirations to be number one or to create a contact killer or anything like that. That is so not what it's about for us. It's about creating something with true heart and intention. And I'm just so glad that you're here to enjoy it with me. We're super fortunate to be able to do this. And I have no doubt in my own little philosophy that this is the right way to go. I've seen the landscape move for quite a while, and I actually find the sampling scene kind of boring. So this is also maybe a way to self-entertain. Years ago, Tanya kind of tested as well. I was like, I think I'm just done. And then I came up with Soundpaint to re-entertain me. And then it's very humbling building your own technology. So that will entertain you for a while. I don't know if that made any sense, man. But it's not for example, on our YouTube channel, I think we just passed 10,000 followers, which is great. I actually wanted to do an experiment where I played 10,000 oscillators to celebrate it. What do you guys think about it? But for me, it's not about the number at all. It's about the quality of the number. So the fact that there's like 100 people watching this right now is like you step into a room and there's 100 people listening to you. That is so. I'm so humbled. Thank you. So yeah, man, we just take it easy. Lars says, "Hey trolls, almost missed the stream. I was actually about to jump on the website. Needs a visual update to pull in the new users." Excellent. Needs a visual update to pull in new users. I'm curious, what do you mean with that? Are you talking about that the interface needs a visual update or the website? We're actually working on something. Let me show this to you guys. Speaking of that, see if I can pull it up here. So we have this tips module here that you guys may recall, but we're working on a new version of it that allows us to open like a picture book. I don't think it's, oh, it is in here, yeah. So we are, we're going to be adding this, and we'll be adding it with the Juniper as well. So for example, with the Juniper, if you want to browse pictures in high resolution, you can do that. So we have it, let me just blow it up a little bit here. So we have it in here that we can browse through pictures. I take hundreds of pictures. A good friend of mine, Benjamin Wolfish, suggested that we should start doing coffee books. Just kind of being able to browse through it. So Mario, you're saying the interface needs a more dynamic look. I wonder what you mean with a more dynamic look. One thing I know we're not going to get is that we're not going to do any form of 3D buttons. I think that is so. The problem with 3D is that it looks good the year it's created and then it just starts dating. So I'm more about like ultra minimalistic approaches. We do have you can reverse to if you want a more bright interface, you can reverse it down here. We are working on other skins as well, but it's definitely going to stay 2D. You may also notice that we don't have any knobs. That's because for me, and this is like logic, like I don't like knobs on screens. They're not really intuitive with my mouse either. Most of our screens are rectangular on a sort of horizontal way. So it makes more sense to have a slider. It follows the length of the screen, which is why we have no knobs. We only have sliders in the engine. So there are certain design decisions that we're sort of stringent on. Lucas says, speaking of soundtracks, a slightly different question. Why the hell don't you write music for games, movies, TV series? Musically, you have an incredible sense of timing, harmony, and melody. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you. I have to be careful what I say on this subject, and not for any particular reason. But I don't want to sound arrogant. I was lucky enough to score what I really wanted early on. I'm predominant from the video game world, so I was lucky enough to score most of the video games I wanted. There's still a couple I would like to do. I have so many friends who are amongst the most successful in movies and TV and all that stuff, and it is very hard, and I find it very humbling to hear some of the stories and all the egos and all that stuff. But I want to be writing music again. I'm very curious what it would sound like. I haven't really written a tune in a while, but I write stuff for myself and to myself as well. But thank you, man. I appreciate it so much. I see the music world a little bit sometimes as a rat race, and for those of you guys who are pros and do this for a living, I think you know what I mean. But I also see a world changing out there where, for me, my ego got resolved years ago. It's not about me, my credits or anything like that. Like Soundpaint is used by more places and ADO as well than I could ever account for, and I'm so humbled by that as well. So yeah, what am I trying to say? I want to say one thing, that a lot of the music I used to write, like in that sort of epic style, I find completely dated. Like epic really needs to change. It's sort of suffering the same fate as disco did. It sounds like musical cliche to me. I just cannot listen to it. So I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think I just need another sip of coffee. What do you think? Just reading on the chat here. A real Juno does not look dynamic. It just sounds amazing. Yeah. It has its things. Like I took all these pictures here of the Jupiter. I can't wait to share it with you guys. Like there's a lot. Like I like to go deep on photos, and these units they are so beautiful in so many ways. Let me just show you guys a couple different ones here. Well, I have to pull it in here. Again, this is not a feature that's out yet, but we're building it. But these are high resolution 63 megapixel images of the Jupiter, so we can get deep into it and appreciate it. I just thought it was so cute to have like a little picture book that we can enjoy. It's just such a beautiful unit. I mean, to me, that is like brings me close to like being there with it. Isn't that pretty? And I mean, these old LED displays, they're not LED, by the way. These old displays, they're just so gorgeous. To me, it's just like sitting there with the unit. So pretty. Let's see here. Jeff says, to me, this is an instrument to play and not something you spend playing the UI. I agree, Jeff. I completely agree. I mean, as much as I want to show you guys the UI here, I think in its ideal form, there should be no UI at all. It should just be you playing. And that's why I feel acoustic instruments are, in many ways, the instruments of the future. Like, we can touch them, play them directly, no boot time, no load time, it just works. And Soundpaint should be the same. Big Brain says, yeah, that makes sense. However, there is a Soundpaint evolution video that shows they did experiment with color, eventually deciding, yeah. I don't know if anyone wants to link in that in the chat, but we do have a video that shows all the design iterations I went through. I've designed this UI myself. I spend more time with design than I do with music. I absolutely love design, and I think the two go hand in hand. We did have a much more colorful version. We worked with a designer from Apple that helped me clean up the UI, and he was like, "It's all gotta go. This is a tool. Why are you trying to add all these things in there?" The only thing that stayed is that little loading icon we have of the bee. At Sunset Drive, I love this one here. Someone posted some of my credits. Thank you. I appreciate that. But as I said, like, for me, the greatest accomplishment for me is actually to create something that you guys want to use and that is used out there. Someone did a calculation at some point, like I think we're in about like 40% of all like blockbusters, which is great. But things are changing as well. I find like that the sound that we helped define 10 years ago, whatever, is changing as well. There's always a movement forward when it comes to fidelity. I happen to think that a lot of that fidelity is in the past. Look at music consumption patterns on Spotify. You'll notice that there's more and more people listening to music from the 70s and 80s and early 90s. And I don't think it's because the tunes are necessarily so much better than what's written today. I think it's because they're more pleasant to listen to. And a part of that has to do with the way things were produced. Vintage synthesizer is clearly a part of it. So for me, a part of what's coming down the road is actually going back in time. For the very same reason we also did the Vivaldi library. So I hear the future in these things here. They're simply just a higher grade of instruments. And it's a very subjective thing. As I said, there are many, many beautiful modern instruments as well that can easily do what we're doing here and well beyond it. But that sort of the idea of cooking with vintage ingredients and combining a lot of them, that's where you start sort of separating yourself, because each of them just sounds nominally better than their digital counterparts. And you put enough of them together and all of a sudden you have a mix that sounds a little bit like 70s, 80s, but in a more modern sense. So we can dial in what decade we want to be in with true authenticity. So that for me makes a big, big difference. And as I mentioned earlier, if you listen to most top 40 music today, is when it comes to synthesis, and you'll realize most of it is using vintage, like true hardware vintage analogs. They have a soft touch to them. I say that and then it plays like the loudest ARP. The Jupiter, unlike the Juno we just listened to, is a little more on the aggressive side. Anyway, back to the chat here. Got to love that 90s morphing pads. Thank you, whoever posted the sketch to creation thing. Another important feature I would like to see is the ability to adjust the color for each individual part. Yeah, Philip, you're right. We've actually we actually had it in beta, the ability to control the color scheme of the engine. It may be something we should introduce again. I think it might be a little bit heavy on the eye if we have different colors for different parts. One thing, fun fact, by the way, but when I designed this UI in the beginning, I was both an Android and an iPhone user. I love the iPhone's lock design because it's just so well, neatly polished. And as I mentioned, Soundpaint was polished by one of the main Apple designers, which is a good friend of mine, which is great. And then I had Android, which is completely customizable. And Soundpaint ended up being somewhere in between the two. We can somewhat customize, but we're also somewhat in a safe world. I have to consider it's a universal engine. And when you open up things too much, they also tend to just get like, the design is a very stringent discipline. And it's something that I'm constantly battling with in terms of like how to be stringent in the design and how not to be. Let's see here. What else we got? We got some experiments. We got leads, clean leads, pop stardom. It just has a very like strong character to it, particularly once we get into like the dirty leads, like the Daft Punk. That sort of sync sound. Daft Punky. Let's see here. What's your favorite Soundpaint sound? Philip is asking. Hold on, I want to make sure I'm not missing any chats here. Funny, pretty colorful interfaces don't make a sound. Can you send the vocal software as an input device? We don't have. We are working on input devices through the engine. By the way, that's a whole other thing I can't really get into. It's a larger sort of endeavor. But yes, we're definitely going to have some. We're going to be playing with input in any way. Fabian says, I came to Soundpaint to buy quite a ADO products from Contact. When I discovered all the possibilities, honestly, I've never had a thought about the look of the interface. Fabian, I think you remind me about my mom. My mom was a translator. I mean, it's not like you remind me about my mom, but your quote reminds me about my mom. She was a translator, and she used to say that the best translations are transparent. You don't, if you watch TV and there's subtitles, the best ones you just kind of read and they're just a part of the experience. I feel UI in its perfect inception is the same. It's not in the way. It's there to help in a transparent way. Very, very, very hard to do for me at least. I'm not very patient as a person, and this great design requires a lot of patience and iterations. Isaac asks, is there a recent soundtrack you can point to that is your version of cutting edge? Man. That is a good question. I actually don't listen to so much music. I actually spend more of my time on looking at cutting edge designs online and cutting edge technologies, and particularly the synesthesia between different technologies and how they can play together. So I shouldn't be so brave to say what's the cutting edge soundtrack. I think Goranson did beautiful on his last movie, the Nolan movie. But actually, I actually think the soundtrack world has gotten a little bit stale. In particular, my pet peeve for many years has been about video games, that I always felt they lacked a little bit, and I still feel the same. I just played a bunch of games this week, and there's some cool scores in there, but I think, and this part relates to the studio not wanting to invest enough in production values. But I'm actually more back to the masters, the great ones. I find with a lot of entertainment music, this is just from my own aesthetic evolution, that it easily becomes musical cliche. There are things that I used to listen to years ago that I thought were so amazing, and I can't stand them today. But this is just my evolution, man. But yeah, I listen probably more to what goes on in the top 40, and in more experimental music as well, more avant-garde. So I'm not so much a soundtrack guy. I used to be, but not so much anymore. Like, if you play me Raiders of the Lost Ark, for example, I used to love that, and I couldn't listen to it today. It's so cliche to me. This is just my humble and naive, limited ears. I came to let's see, soundtracks, The Brief, never mind, Tom Sawyer Rush. Yeah, the Tom Sawyer Rush sound from the OBHM synth, which is coming as well, is that sync kind of sound. The solo, you say, I think back in the 70s, 80s, things were fundamentally more fun and experimental. We ask today, things are very minimal, struggling to be unique, just jam and have fun. Yes. Yes. I think another thing that was more limiting is that they worked on tape, and you couldn't sequence stuff as well. So if you ever watch any of the Thriller albums, or how Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson produced, and many others, I mean, it goes for that whole generation. They played everything. So the bass line in Thriller, Greg Fillingen's actually played all the way through the track. And that gets you more in the pocket of the groove. It's simply more musical. And I think there's something in the deeper ether of that is like, it's more musical when you do it that way. And that's why I sometimes like working on the grid in the DAW is like the worst thing. Like if you guys quantize your stuff, just make sure you quantize with a little bit of randomness if you have to do it, but try to stay away from it. It makes the music more alive. Lars says, here's how I see things. When I started re-recording my 80s stuff after 30 years plus, you actually only need this and the synth catalog. I feel you, brother. That's how I feel as well. But we didn't know back then. You know, we thought a lot of people threw out their CS80s and their synthesizers as well. Let me just play a little more. I feel I'm talking too much here. You guys just tell me if you want me to shut up and play more or vice versa. But right now we're going to play a little bit. I mean, for me, this sound here, I'm right back in time. It's funny with the Juniper, it always has a little bit like a bite. It's not the softest thing in the world. Even a sound like this, it's like. The track that would never be. Just reading on the chat here. UI is perfect in my world. Yeah, we don't have any major plans to switch up the UI too much. It's also a lot of work. But if we can optimize it, make it faster, more logical, absolutely. It's simple and unintimidating. I'm so glad you guys feel that way. You know, it's like Soundpaint in a way is easy if you want it to be easy, and it's deep if you want to be deep. Let me take you down like how we can go deep on it. So let's go back to the filter here. Let me just load something Juniper like. Let's try something else. Bass mess with me. Oh, listen to this. Yeah, it's just that sound. UI is perfect in my world, the clouds are mine. Funny is you throw them away, and then yeah. I mean, it's the whole user skin and to make it too shiny and all that stuff. Like I think about like longevity in design, and if I look at old Olivetti typewriters, stuff that inspired Apple and Johnny Ives in the early days, the Bauhaus period, the stringency in the design, and I think this goes for musical composition as well. It's like it really requires like restraint to keep it somewhat simple. Anyway, what I wanted to show you guys is like how deep the rabbit hole can go. Like let's just say this is probably about as complicated as Soundpaint gets. This new filter section here. We can modulate in different ways, and we can actually modulate in different levels. So let's go a little bit deeper down like the rabbit hole. So if we go into cutoff here, I can right click, I can assign it to my mod wheel. It's great. I can also, let's put an LFO on instead. And let's switch the sync off. We'll go here. Right? So right now, just skating back and forth, we can limit that. We can adjust the frequency. But let's say, hey, but I want to control the amount here. You can create another layer of modulation. So now I'm controlling the amount. Let me just put that up here on a slider that we can see here. So now this slider here controls the amount, but notice how frequency is unaffected. I can also put another CC on that. So now these are completely honest. So we can do multiple layers of modulation. So the rabbit hole goes deep. But do we have to go there? No. Do I go there most of the time? No, I don't. It's just there for those who dare. And it all gets recorded inside of this matrix here. This was a late night for me. When I listen to my favorite songs and trying to recreate the sounds, Oscar says, clearly accessible and dedicated controls, my ears are more important. Yeah, it's all about the ear. The ear that can hear, put an H in front of it and a T at the end. We have heart. We skip the H and the E. We have art. We have the ear in the middle that can hear. It's all the same thing. It's to learn to listen with our heart. Just following up here in the chat, I feel I need to respond a little more. Let me make sure here I'm. DeSolo says, yeah, do I pronounce your name correctly? Is it DeSolo or DeSolo? DeSolo. It's funny, I remember years ago you taught me about layering a bass in Snapchat one-to-one. Oh, okay, that's great. I'm so glad that. Thank you, man. And I was layering different sounds. Yeah, I mean, God, we can layer to the 11th degree now. Ambient Knot says, in modern pop and rock, I'm tired of regurgitation. Why do we always have to reach backwards into a financial successful period from the past? We don't. There's no right or wrong way. For me, it's more an objective question. What sounds the best to me, with an open ear and heart? And I just think the past sounds better. When we recorded harpsichords for Vivaldi, I learned some valuable lessons as well. There's stuff in the past that was overlooked because it wasn't pretty, the instrument itself, I mean, and it just sounded so much better than the prettier newer ones. So I approach it more objectively. It's not what it looks like, it's purely what it sounds like. And a lot of people see it the other way. If you go into a piano store, they'll tell you about 95% of pianos are sold as furniture. So visuals do play an important role. Well, what does that have to do with the sound? Like, this is an invisible discipline. Jeff Parker says, nostalgia is huge marketing and personal draw of music. I'm not coming from the point of view of like trying to be like forcefully nostalgic about it. I actually think it sounds better. Like for me, the peak period of music production, late 80s to early 90s, where digital and analog happened. Listen to Tears for Fears, like that's about as good as it gets from a production point of view. There's a lot of stuff, but also like 70s off the wall, some of the recording methods. For example, when they recorded drums, they tended just to have like maybe 2 mics and just record the drum as a whole. It wasn't like super dedicated with microphones everywhere and you can dial in your mix. So it became too perfect and we spent too much time on obsessing about engineering instead of obsessing about the melody. The fact that the production methods were so much more limited in a way created better music as well. So it's not nostalgia just for its own sobbing reasons. If it's actually not about nostalgia at all for me, it just happens that it comes out because we get nostalgic in our memories associated to the music. But from a pure production point of view, I just approach it as like, it just sounds better, like a lot better. And these older synthesizers, ironically, are not as big as the modern ones either, but that's also what's so perfect about them. And as I mentioned earlier, like for me, one of the most beautiful things is that the circuitry inside of the synths are degrading. So every voice gets its own color, stuff that we can't do in digital, and you feel it in the music. You add enough components together, you feel it even more. It's almost like saying like, you know, a live player versus a non-live player. Like we gotta, it just sounds better. They don't make the old days like they used to, Spokansis says. And that is true as well. They don't make the old days like they used to. I've often wondered why they don't like reissue these synths as they actually are, because they're so much better. They really are. That's just my take on it. Someone says, Soundpaint 4.0, let's go. Neural tech music. Yep. I'm very curious, what is neural tech music, by the way? Tell me more about that. Service the filter slider mod pad, change the battery. Yeah, I mean, these are the pains of dealing with real analogs. And there's no nostalgia in that, by the way. Like that, it's dreadful, to say the least. So for me, the whole reason I'm doing this really is so I don't have to turn on my vintage units. And if they sadly die, I know I preserved them at the perfect state. So we normally have everything cleaned up before we sample them, and then we go into it. The CS80 actually broke down the very last stages of the sessions and had to go into repairs. And that was for me, actually, when I stopped sampling, it was like, okay, the unit is telling me it is broken yet again, and I've gone more than 11th dimensions deeper than I ever thought I would. So we're good. 4.0, has it already been patched once or twice? I'm not sure what you mean with that. Dirk Ehlert is here. Hello, Dirk. I suppose it's Dirk. That would probably be the right pronunciation. UI visuals versus sound and control, Soundpaint. You want Neural Tech saying, have anyone tried the time stretching yet? So thank you for mentioning that, by the way. I completely forgot that out of many things. Yes, we have a new time stretcher. Let me load one of the guitars because it applies better to that. If we take let's just take the mandolin we had earlier. I'll load in a strummer. And so when a library is in PCM, let me just switch to a better view here. When a library is in PCM, you can see it up here. That means that the time stretching module you're using is our new time stretching module. I'm actually thinking about maybe we should call it Time Pro, so there's a distinction between our RTS filter and our PCM filter. The new Time Stretch Pro only works on our PCM libraries. Again, different benefits to different file formats. This was almost a year in itself by one developer. Notice down here on the core meter how it's barely affected by the time stretcher. That was the hardest thing to get optimized. So this is like 50% slower. surprisingly clean. 20% faster, 30% faster. And there'll be a limit. Still sounds good to me. Like the transients are preserved. That's the time stretcher. I love it. And time stretching, we could do a whole podcast on how deep we've gone into figuring out time stretching, especially in terms of making it optimized. It's something we're going to get a lot more into once we get into Vivaldi, things that really benefit from time stretching. We could time stretch the synthesizer as well. Let's take this thriller bass right here, open time, and and try to time stretch it. Still pretty good. This is like notably slower, like 3 times slowed down. Start hearing a little bit now. Now the crazy thing about this is that it's still per voice based, so we can use a time stretcher, and there's a time stretcher per note, and each of these notes goes into the filter as well. Kind of cool in its own way. Okay, back to the chat. Has anyone tried time stretching? That's where we just came from. So I want to make sure. I felt I skipped too much stuff on the previous stream in terms of like reading all the comments. So I want to make sure we really nail it here. Neural Tech has 55 libraries. Jeff has 1.6 terabytes here for my Soundpaint libraries. Wow. Thank you guys. That's a substantial amount of Soundpaint libraries. We are really, and this is a good example of working with the community, taking the feedback to heart in terms of the size of the libraries. That's another reason we went down the PCM route, and we have FLAC support as well. We can really compress the libraries. It's going to be important for next-gen orchestral instruments in particular. So yeah, and we will convert some of the older libraries as well. I appreciate you guys sacrificing so much of your solid state drive space. Spokensis said, I had to remove my old Juniper 8 for the new one. There's only a small issue for me. Yeah, Spokensis, I'll say like, the new one is so much better. It's just not, we discontinued the old one because it served little purpose. Like the only thing you don't have left is the morphing patches. But compared to what you get, it's negligible. Van Halen is notorious for being quite raw from a production perspective in the early days. You listen to isolated tracks and they really sound off on their own, but together. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And go back and watch videos with any of your favorite bands, and like it was both very hard because they had to sync everything to tape, like the ABBA production, Beatles productions, like crazy advanced for their time. Maybe not so much today, but like you deal with real tape, it's a different flow. It's not always great because things are just easier. In a way, like the easiness also makes music easy. There's no golden rules, but it's a little bit like microwave food sometimes. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. We have to massage the sounds. We have to edit. If you want to write a great text, the amount of of re-editing to write something great, really it takes time. Same with design. Yeah, there's a lot of wows. I'm wowed as well, like in terms of how many gazillion gigabytes that you guys have. Every genre is EDM is my goal, Neural Tech says. Thank you for your answer. Ambient Not says, I meant more about reaching back towards known genres. I'm excited for new genres pushing boundaries, but I agree that the older production techniques. I hear you. Yeah, I think there's just stuff to be learned in the old genres that we lost a little bit. So I think sometimes we not always for the right reasons, we lose something, and it's about going back sometimes and picking up what we lost. As I mentioned earlier, like older instruments, how come the Stradivarius is still the best sounding violin? What is it? And cellos, like what is it? What was it? Just the batch of wood? Was it the production method? Was it because it landed in the hands of famous players that could really express? But the people that own Stradivarius become one with the instrument. I mean, it's truly a spiritual kind of sensation. Is it all bullshit? There's been blind tests done. The verdict is about 50-50 on it. We don't know. But as objectively as I can speak about it, like if I just listen to what moves me the most at an individual sound level, I'm in the past for the most part. And I think it's due to, Bob Moog described it a lot better than I ever could, but like the fact that you're dealing with real electricity and the philosophy around that, and that you can feel it go through the circuitry. And a huge part of what we're doing with C.A.F is trying to emulate that same sensation of real electricity and the nimbleness of it. Like even just to like take something like a simple sound like this and make the filter this smooth without killing your CPU and knowing that it's for each individual voice. It takes a lot of love, like many months of work of just sitting and polishing and ripping out the code, be self-critical, use our ears, not our intellect so much. Yes, just do the Northern European version. Danish should be fine with that, Dirk says. Okay, Dirk. You guys are still talking about specs and solid-state drives and how many... yeah, I mean, I'll say with regarding to solid-state drives, if you don't have one, invest in one. Soundpaint is optimized for solid-state drives. The newer ones are clearly better. They've gotten a lot faster over the years as well. I absolutely love having no weight, like no load times, none of that. I think it's almost insulting at this point if I'm using a piece of software that has load times. But that's I only use Soundpaint. I don't really use any other plugins, and I'm building it as such as well, so it fulfills my own desires. Steve Good says, not sure it's related to time stretch, but is there another way to preserve legato when you play out of range with the duster strings? Not right now, Steve. We actually have created a method that expands the legato range, and it's something we're slowly introducing. We may go back and update the older library as well, so you have a larger, even artificial, true legato range as well. But it's a valid point. Winch Machine, what do you think about UJM Hans Zimmer for Rails joint, where they enable you to make radio-ready sounds out of the box? I don't know. I haven't heard about that. I generally refrain from commenting on any other developer's works, unless I have something good to say. I mentioned Serum 2 in the early part of the video. It's like what a crazy feat. Like, and it's a good example of something that like that is his whole own dimension and the crazy things you can do in it. Like I know Zimmer uses Yuhi Zebra as well. Amazing tools. And if it works for people, it works, you know? There's no right or wrong. For me, I don't trust my sound design abilities enough that I can emulate the past fully in modern synths. I haven't quite heard it either. I think something that is often ignored is the oscillators. A digital oscillator is great, but it's not the same as an analog one, and particularly not at the level of depth we record them chromatically, round robin, using right CAF technologies to get closer to the soul of it. You don't see that in digital. The best example I can give of this is actually not even with a synthesizer. It's just loading. And I wish I had a bad, well, I actually have. Let me show you guys an experiment. I'm gonna trigger a sound in the art right now. Let's just take a hi-hat. Let's see here. Yeah, try to listen to this guy here. This is playing the same sample over and over. We call this the machine gun effect. And now I'm going to show you what it sounds like when you have natural variation in the sample. This is exactly the same for the synthesizers. Let me see here. There's constant variation in the sound because someone was insane enough to also deep sample the 808 to 15,000 samples. There's over 1,000 hi-hat samples, and it can only create one sound, but there's a natural variance in that sound. You can really hear it on the clap too. It's not the same sample, and you can hear it immediately. And this is being triggered on a static ARP. So it's my belief that once you have enough components at that level, it starts becoming a little bit different. I made a couple of grooves this week here as well, by the way, I only use Soundpaint, so. Oh yeah, this one. This one was funny. Let me just load up a lead here, actually. This is made with the Juniper 8 as well. Then I made this nasty groove here, where I took the bit crusher and put it over a clap on 808. You know, just have a little bit of fun. And I did not intend to do Kraftwerk's model, but whatever. Oscar asked, do you think companies are, this is a good question, and I have to tread lightly how I answer it. But trolls, when do you think companies will try to copy your tech? Oscar, they already have. We've actually seen a couple of samplers that came out in the last 6 months that were more or less trying to copy the tech. And I don't take it as flattery at all. I think it's lazy. But you know, let them go at it. I think, you know, one thing is trying to copy the tech, but a lot of the nuance is in the detail. I had a weird thought last night, maybe it was because too late, but a lot of the beauty that I pursue is in very, very small things that most people wouldn't pay attention to or don't care about. And they don't really matter that much, but the summary of all of them, the thousands of decisions, like in Soundpaint, just this tiny thing here that I can hold down my mouse button and just draw on the ARP here, that level of logic across the engine and just knowing how difficult it is. Like our effects section, that was like years of work to get that down. Then it's also, you know, having enough experience with how to sample things. You can't really quantify that in rules as well. I'm surprised how many times we've been ripped off and how, for the most part, poorly it's been done. Even people that used to work with me ripped us off. And I was actually surprised that sometimes that not more stuff have dropped off in the process because they worked with us for years and ended up trying to replicate, and yet that didn't always work. But I have my own very strange philosophy, and I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of stuff in the equation as well. But it's yeah, what can I say? It's a good and hard question. We've had major developers copy paste our shit as well, and when I wrote them, they weren't happy about that, but I wasn't happy about. I think it's like, just think on your own. Like, I don't think we're taking too many derivatives of someone else's work here. We're really trying to create something original. So it's fine. It's fine, but I don't take it as flattery at all. I think I think a lot of people, it would benefit the industry if people were more original and try to really push the bar. But it requires a surprising amount of stamina, and it's very humbling to create an environment like this. I hope I didn't sound too arrogant in that answer. It was a hard question, but I want to be honest about it as well. Dave says, thinking about doing the same with new libraries on the way. Yeah, what you're seeing today is essentially what we want to do, like across the lines. We're going to continue to do this. PCM, C.A.F models, all that stuff. Yep. I like the percentage-based time stretching. It's fun. Nobody... Sorry, the chat just skipped here. 2 seconds. I'm just gonna read it. There's a little too many chats here, so I'm trying to like catch up here. Okay. You guys are talking about contact libraries. Audio Modern is killing it with Soundbox. I'll remain neutral on that one. I haven't seen another rompler that does the same thing as Soundpaint. I don't know. It's also it's a philosophy. It's a sample philosophy. It's in the ideal space, we'll have different dedicated developers that are really passionate about what they do, that are each trying to pursue different directions. I have my philosophy, and as I mentioned earlier, the best advice I ever got was to never take any, so I offer the same to you guys. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I think you need to let your ear judge. I will note one thing that I never understood. People often fall for celebrity credits, like how many celebrity libraries are there and how many of those celebrities actually use those libraries and write with them. It's like, that would be my first question. The other one is to go, and I'm so guilty of this as well, but go beyond the hyperboles of marketing bullshit and actually just listen to the instrument and the demos. Like, what does it actually sound like? I don't care what hall it was recorded in. Some of the most beautiful recordings ever done were recording at random stairwells or in pyramids or halls or whatever. It doesn't matter that much, but I think a lot of people's like, oh my God, it has to be Abbey Road or whatever. I'm like, it does not. I'm sorry. What really matters is not the microphones, it's not the hall. It's the quality of the performance. You'd be surprised what this little Zoom recorder I have here has gone through. I used it on so many different things. It's in sample libraries as well, and it's not great, and the mics are not perfect on it either, but if you get the right performance, that's really all that matters. So I think it's also easy to be allured by a lot of technical stuff, like it has to be this or that, or and I'm certainly guilty of it as well in terms of talking about specs. Most important is what it sounds and feels like, and then there's small things on the side. Like for me, it's really important that it's not taxing on my CPU. I think that's so important. I don't want to have a heavy engine, which is why we have to say no to certain things. For example, a lot of people say, like, why can't we take each part and assign effects to them? We may do that later down the line, but you're breaking up and making the engine a lot heavier every time you do that instead of putting it into a singular stream. Do I really need it? No. Do I want my downloader built into the application? Yes, absolutely. So I can just download whatever I want right away. That's the way it should be. Why do I need to open some service center or whatever? That's so old school. So there are a lot of conveniences that the technology can bring forward as well. Anyway. Let me just go back to the chat here. And thank you guys. Thank you for all your awesome questions. I hope I'm not rambling too much. Sampling work back to the Amiga Megapixel says was all my thing in the 90s. Taught me so much about sample editing, which applies now. Megapixel, you're not on the same page. I had the Amiga 500, 512, I can't remember what it's called. That was my first big leap into sampling. I actually used to sample I sampled on the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum before that. But yeah, the Amiga was one, I mean, from a graphical point of view, This is actually how I started in the whole industry. I used to play a video game called Defender of the Crown on the Amiga, and I just loved that game. And then I saw many years later there was a remake of it, and I was like, I would love to score that. I'd never scored anything at that point. So I wrote the developers, and I made a track, and they said like, hey, thank you so much. We already have another composer, all that stuff. And then I got so upset. So I made another track because I really wanted it. And I didn't know these guys at all. And they wrote back again like, hey, thank you so much. We have our own thing going here. We really appreciate the fan work. And then 2 weeks later, they wrote back that, hey, like we actually put this in a cinematic and it worked perfectly. Like, do you want to take a stab at this? So it was just through pure persistence. The individual that I worked with back then was actually the person that got me to the United States later in my life as well. Someone I'm eternally grateful to. One of my mentors in my life. And for any of you guys who've had mentors, remember to reach out to them and tell them how much you appreciate them. I've had this rant lately where I just contact people, not necessarily mentors, but just people that opened the door, or a teacher that was nice to me or something, and just say, hey, I so appreciate it. You know, treat my days like it's the last one. I think that helps. I have 2 Amigas downstairs. Jeff Parker, you have 2 Amigas. Wow. That was one hell of a machine. Such a big leap. I mean, with the C64, that was like what a crazy leap. These are old like chiptune video game consoles. Yeah, the SNES Mario Paint. Yeah. We actually, you may know, we have a fairly extensive chiptune catalog. Speaking of C.A.F, actually, the C64, the Game Boy, and the Spectrum should definitely get C.A.F support as well. These are better in the C.A.F realm than they are in the RTS Morph realm. Anyway, we've been going for quite a while, and I need to get a little bit of sleep. But I think you guys have been amazing, and I can hang out for a little more here. The chat is clearly hot right now, which I so appreciate. Let me just play a little bit. I'll follow the chat and just chime in, but just show you guys a little more about the Juniper here, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you to you, Noonie Bear. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you for supporting us, and for allowing us to just explore new technologies and new instruments and all that stuff. It is really because of you guys. So I know both on behalf of Tanya, me, Marissa, and everyone, we're so grateful. We really are. Next Saturday, we have a lot of stuff coming. It's about the Juno next week. So the Jupiter's out now. The Juno's coming in a few days. And yeah, what else is there to say? One love. And I appreciate it so much. You guys are the best.